Hi there, everyone. Good morning. I am Prince Rentoria from the Group 6, and we are assigned to report about two case studies. Now, before proceeding to the report proper, may I ask a question. What is the importance of studying case studies? A case study is important because it helps us in bringing the understanding of a complex issue or object. Now, it can extend experience or add strength to our existing knowledge. Case study helps us understand more the theories that we learned in the classroom and see the implications of these theories in the real world. So without further ado, let's now proceed with the first case study, which is entitled Logistics in the News. Markets and food producers are taking their products on used journeys. Despite pledging to cut their carbon emissions, homegrown products are being transported thousands of miles for processing before being put on sale back in Britain. Jason Turan's campaign's director of Transport 2000, the Environment Transport Group, said, "We are producing food in one corner of the world, packaging it in another, and then shipping it somewhere else. It's mad." Dawn Fresh, a Scottish seafood company that supplies supermarkets and other large retailers, caught 70 jobs last year after deciding to ship its scampi more than 8,000 kilometers to China to be shelled by hand, then shipped back to Scotland and breaded for sale in Britain. The company said it was forced to make the move by commercial pressures. This seems a bizarre thing to do, but the reality is that the numbers don't stack up and any other way, says Andrew Stapley, a director. We are not the first in the industry that has had to do this. Sadly, it's cheaper to process overseas than in the UK, and companies like us are having to do this to remain competitive. Commissioned by World Flowers. The study was carried out by Adrian Williams of Cranfield University's Natural Resources Department to establish the actions needed to reduce Saintbury's carbon footprint regarding Kenyan roses. Results have provided a fresh challenge to much current thinking on local sourcing and the impact of air freight. The high environmental cost of heating and lighting for growing roses in the Netherlands outweighed emissions caused by flying them in from Kenya. In contrast, nearly 99% of the carbon dioxide emissions from the Kenyan roses were accounted for by the 6,000 kilometers clocked up by air freighting them to the UK. Now, what are the pros and cons of sourcing commodity items in low-wage economies? Now, to answer this question, may I now call on Solna and Hazel.
Good morning, mga inday ug mga dudong. My name is Solna Atuel, together with my partner.
I am Hazel Kate Latonio, and we are here to discuss to you the pros and cons of sourcing commodity items in low-wage economies.
First, pros. Cheaper labor. If an organization outsources the manufacturing of their product to a country that has a low labor, they will be able to save the money in producing their product. So, let's have the second pros. Access to raw materials. The raw material that is needed in producing a product is not always available on the country that a company is located, which means if a company outsources the raw materials from a country that has an abundance of that certain raw materials, the company will produce the risk of having a shortage of raw materials. Let's have our third pros, lower cost of goods. When a company sources its raw material from a country that has a price that is far cheaper than the price of the certain raw material in the local market, it will give a better profit margin to the company. Another great example would be Nestle. Nestle is a huge company that has various products, and we all know that they source the raw material all over the world. Example of their spices for their Maggi and Tommy brand are sourced mostly from countries in Asia, including the India, Vietnam, and Malaysia. India, the spices hub of the world, has a wide variation in agronomic conditions and grows almost half of the world's spices compared to the other spices supplier in the world. It is evidently cheap in Asia. So let's have our fourth pros, increases productivity. A small company's team should focus on growing the company and its business development. Assigning additional responsibilities that aren't within their expertise and pay grade will end up costing your company more. Small companies should also save their ongoing expenses and not add up more overhead costs by hiring more employees. But the expertise of brand marketer or an HR executive need not to be sacrificed. Outsourcing a small business work with the economies of scale and cost structure that lead to saving while also providing a competitive advantage. Outsourcing another company to do your payroll, brand content, and IT related matters lets you work with the budget you have and adjust it accordingly when the time comes. At the same time, you're sure to tap experts in these fields and tasks since they are known companies that handle these responsibilities. Both companies' small team and the outsourced company's productivity is not influenced by the additional responsibility or cost. So for our last pros, promotes growth especially to smaller companies. Growth is the top priority of small companies. This entails the company's team to focus on core business function and developing their product or service accordingly. Unfortunately, related but outside matters such as marketing, training staff, managing IT, and problem solving could distract the top management from doing what needs to be done during the company's beginnings. Outsourcing allows small and medium companies to focus on their growth without compromising other related matters. According to a PricewaterhouseCoopers survey, small companies that utilize outsourcing are able to grow bigger and faster. They're even able to gain more profits compared to small companies that prefer to do everything in-house. Another survey reported that more companies are opting to outsource so they can maintain their strength in the market despite changes in technology and regulations.
Thank you, Inday Solna. So our first con would be longer lead times. Longer lead times because the production of a certain product of a specific company will be done abroad. And if it will be done abroad, then it will really take a lot of time for it to reach to its end customer. Okay, then let's also proceed to our second con, which is the lack of control. When a company outsources abroad, there really is no assurance that the partner abroad will follow their desired results, even though there was an agreement beforehand, because there is still a possibility that errors could occur. Whether you already signed a contract to have another company perform that function of an entire department or even a single task, you are already turning in that management and control of that function over to another company, which is the company that you are outsourcing with. Remember that your outsourcing company will not be driven by the same standards and mission that drives your company. In addition, you will lose the ability to rapidly respond to changes in the business environment because there will be now extra layer of people and processes to work through. So let's also proceed to our third con, which is the quality concerns. In outsourcing, the product you want to be done or the raw materials that you need to buy should be large enough that it would be worth investing for that company that you are outsourcing with. As a result, before outsourcing, this causes businesses to continually have to prepare and budget for large-scale orders. Okay, then let's also move to our fourth con, which is job loss. Job loss is also not a common issue in the outsourcing world because companies in developed countries would want their production to a country that has cheaper labor costs. That would result to have a job loss in developed countries. As stated in the case, Down Fresh, a Scottish seafood company that supplies supermarkets and other large retailers, cut 70 jobs last year after deciding to ship its scampi more than 8,000 kilometers to China to be shelled by hand, then shipped back to Scotland and then breaded for sale in Britain. Well, there is much debate to whether or not outsourcing causes unemployment or actually added jobs to the economy. But it is really obvious that it does eliminate certain kind of jobs. Presumably, those workers who lose those jobs go on to better jobs in a new industry or company that will have a thorough training or a better training and education. Manufacturing jobs are a prime example for this. And now we are down to our last con, which is the threat to security and confidentiality. Intellectual property or the IP and confidential data must be protected when a non-company employees are being used in an outsourcing capacity. If you have like payroll, medical records, or any other confidential information that will be transmitted or used of a certain outsourcing company, there really is a big risk that confidentiality may be compromised. If the outsourced function involves sharing proprietary company data or knowledge such as product drawings or formulas, these are needed to be proactive in a safeguard place to protect this information. Let's play it safe and insist that the outsourcing company sign a protective clause in the contract or as a separate non-disclosure agreement. Ensure that the contract language is strong enough to discourage a purposeful misuse of essential company data. And that would be all for the pros and cons of sourcing commodity items on low-wage economies. We hope that you guys learned something about today's discussion. Now let me give you the floor to Miss Jannah Montero. Adios!
Good day everyone, this is Jannah and I'll be reporting the case study 4.5 entitled Eliminating Child Labor in the Sialkot Soccer Ball Industry. I will be reading the case study to you guys, and later on Miss Mary Christine Nadera will be the one to answer the question for this case study 4.5. Nearly 75% of soccer balls were produced in Pakistan in 2002. Most of these were produced in the Sialkot district, Pakistan's export capital, close to the border with India. However, an international labor organization (ILO) study in 2002 showed that more than 7,000 children aged between 7 and 14 were stitching footballs on a full-time basis, working between 10 and 11 hours per day and earning between 20 Pakistan rupees and 22 Pakistan rupees per ball. Production ranged from 3 to 5 balls per day per person, and an article in Life magazine appeared in June 1996 featuring Tariq, a 12-year-old stitching balls in Sialkot. This resulted in pressure in international brands like Adidas, Reebok, and Nike to ensure that their products were not produced with child labor. The ILO brokered the Atlanta Agreement to eliminate child labor from the soccer ball industry through improved monitoring. However, monitoring was difficult to implement. Local manufacturers outsourced work to middlemen who in turn dealt with home-based stitchers. These could be whole families including children. Payment was on a fixed price basis, so there was no cost advantage whether the worker was adult or child. The anonymous nature of the network meant that manufacturers had no idea what age of worker was involved. An independent monitoring committee was set up and manufacturers were invited to register. Once registered, manufacturers had to declare details of their entire network, including the number of stitchers, daily production, location of stitching centers, and names of the middlemen. This was to be done gradually over a period of 18 months. And once declared, stitching centers were to be subject to random visits. If child labor was discovered, the manufacturer was instructed to fix the situation. Repeated violations resulted in the manufacturer being withdrawn from the register and reported to international buyers and retailers. Within a few years, practically all of the manufacturers had registered. Sialkot is also famous for leather goods and surgical goods, where international pressures are more difficult to focus. Easy availability of work, lack of meaningful education opportunities, and a poverty of thought prevalent in the community could mean that the problem may only be transferred elsewhere.
What further changes are needed to be there to be sustainable change in incidents of child labor in developing countries like Pakistan? The existence of child labor in developing countries like Pakistan is a serious problem. But not only this country are experiencing it. Some other countries like Bangladesh are also recognized as the frontline acquirer of Millennium Development. And according to ILO, during 2017, there are 152 million children who are involved in child labor all over the world. All good deeds begin from home. It is important that we ourselves are not committing the wrong that we preach to others to avoid. Hence, no excuse is good enough to justify an underage laboring away as a domestic help at our home or at the workplace.
Second, raise awareness in your community, whether it's talking about the ills of child labor to your friend or family, or there are a relative or your friend who is contemplating to hire a child. It is your responsibility to at least communicate to the state for a child labor and raise awareness against it. Lastly, sponsor a child. Not everyone might have the resources to do this, but if you're among those who are economically affluent, play your role and sponsor an education of at least one underprivileged child, so he or she can have a shot at a better future.
We are done discussing about the case study, and as a takeaway, we must help to fight extreme form of child labor everywhere, not only in Pakistan but also to other developing countries, because every children have the right to feel safe today and to have a better tomorrow.
That concludes our report on the 2 case study, Logistics in the News and Eliminating Child Labor in the Sialkot Soccer Ball Industry. Don't forget to drop down your comments, insights, and questions if you have one. Thank you once again and have a good day.